Hello, I am Jake Collins, and this is Knightmare Series 5, Episode 9, which was first broadcast on the 1st of November 1991. Last time I was talking about the two original aspects of gameplay that have gone at this stage. Now I'm going to mention the three original aspects of presentation which are in their final series. We saw one of them there, the pictures that go with the opening music. The music is different, rearranged by now of course, but the pictures have been there since the very first episode. The life force clock is another one of those original aspects from the very first episode, still in the show here in Series 5 and in its final series, as is the portal noise, which despite some changes in presentation has been featured in some way since the very beginning. All three of those original aspects of presentation, they're on the outs. This is the final series for all of them, and I do think that is a great shame. I think they should all have been kept. They've already proven themselves to be perfectly adaptable as Knightmare changes. They do any necessary changes, adaptations with it, and thus Knightmare still feels very much like Knightmare. But no, we're in for some big changes in Series 6, in presentation more than in gameplay. But here we are with the winning team from Series 5, Ben, Jonathan, Ray and John. And as I've been talking, they've exited their first room location in Level 3, the Clue area in Winteria. And really, that's all there is to Winteria. That bit of snowscape from Framlingham Castle in Suffolk. You can see why that's Winteria. Snow-covered, white wolves apparently lurking to menace Ben. Not that Pickle manages quite to get the sentence "White Wolves, Master" out of his mouth before Ben reaches the portal. But where's the rest of Winteria? Well, this is it. Randomly shoved in rooms from Series 4. Here's the old packed room with a grating and a snake on the top of it. Very, very strangely. Doesn't make it look any more wintry, does it? And this is the problem with Level 3 in Series 5. It doesn't have a strong identity. In theory, Winteria is Level 3, but apart from that one scene just now, the Clue Glade, as I was mentioning, it's not really. The other team to get to Level 3 in this series, Sarah's team, had no sign, no mention of Winteria. They just had a few random chambers, one which will later be used for the Level 2 blocker. A red one with Alita doing a ritual, which doesn't get used in the quest elsewhere. It gets used as a background for Hordris's talking to Treguard in the Great Hall scenes in Series 6. And the Corridor of Blades. That was Sarah's Level 3, but it wasn't Winteria, was it? And is this Winteria? It's just a hodgepodge of old Series 4 rooms. I do think it adds a lot to the tension, atmosphere of Level 3, if it is a strong atmospheric location, and Winteria is neither strong nor atmospheric, and rather ill-defined. Later in the series, in the final episode, you get a common room from Series 4 with Isandra's blue fire in it. hung with icicles and made to look very wintry. It would have been a good idea to do something like that to these rooms, wouldn't it? To make it seem like we're in level 3, we're in Winteria. But it just seems like we're stumbling about a kind of Series 4 limbo. Ben having picked up that cloak, it's not really doing him any good here, is it? We're just in the old circular level 3 chamber, nothing remotely wintry about it. The fact that Ben's team is the first team I've chosen to talk about on commentary while they're actually winning isn't really a testament to how much I like them or rate them as winners. They're perfectly fine winners and have some entertaining scenes, but as Pickle says, they are a trifle disorganised, perhaps more than a trifle, if truth be told. And we're kind of due a winner. We're getting into the second half of the series. Ben and friends are in the right place at the right time and don't make any mistakes from any possible mistakes that they could make. This level 3 is easy, linear. It only requires taking the gem, the green gem, which they've spotted as something that they used earlier in their quest to give to Alita, and you get a very linear sequence of events here. Give a green gem to Alita again. They know they're looking for a bone from the scroll. She gives it to them. Give the bone to Hordris, and he's just given them the 2 spells they need to succeed. As I said before, level 3 often isn't very complicated or hard, really, and this is certainly a case in point. It makes up for that if it's exciting, atmospheric, but this level 3, Winteria, it's not really. This is the best scene in the episode. Quite exciting at the time. It's another old Series 4 room, the block and tackle room. It's not going to fall apart this time. I suppose it's all frozen in place, because we can see, for only the second and for the final time in Winteria, some sort of wintry landscape thrown in for good measure, which goes very well with Isandra there, doesn't it? The final villain encounter, spellcasting freeze. John loves shouting out spellcasting and then shouting the letters out. He particularly enjoyed it with freeze, I think. So quite a good final villain defeat scene there with Isandra. Isandra's only appearance in person, of course. A notable scene. Also notable for the fact that, as we're talking about original aspects of the show disappearing, the last original piece of artwork from Series 1 has just disappeared forever in terms of dungeon rooms. As I mentioned before, that's Granitas and Olgarth's door sampled and copied in that room we've just had. Bricked up before, opened up now to make the block and tackle room. Ben's just used it to get through to the final chamber here, and that's the last we'll see of that door and that part of an original David Rowe Knightmare room painting. Original aspects of the show are dropping off. It did disappoint me at the time, back in 1991 when I was 8, and when I stop and think about it, it still disappoints me now. This is quite a nice way to do this final causeway-like sliding floor blocks, Roman numerals and shapes puzzle, crossing the moat here, picking up the shield of justice in the middle. You get to the entrance of Bodiam Castle in East Sussex with the shield, you've won. And of course Ben is going to do that shortly. Is this also supposed to be Winteria? It's not wintry, is it? There's opportunity to make an atmospheric, defined level 3 location out of Winteria, if only here with Ben. It would be slightly anomalous for it not to even have been mentioned with Sarah, but I'd like it more as a level 3 location if more effort was put into it here. If it really was a well-defined atmospheric level 3. But, as I say, it simply isn't. When Hordris gave out those spells, he gave the clue: 1 defeats the sorceress Isandra, 1 releases the object of your quest. When I first watched this, back on the 1st of November 1991, and John was spellcasting for Isandra, F. Okay, I thought, ah, he went. And I thought, oh, aren't you casting fire, like Dickon and Malice in the previous series? He's casting freeze. Is that the right thing to do? Was that the one to defeat the sorceress Isandra? Yes, actually, of course it was. There was also a clue from Isandra herself. You must, of course, fight fire with fire. Or in this case, ice with ice. So that's why the freeze spell was to defeat Isandra. And of course, the fire spell was to release the object of their quest from a block of ice. You can't release something with a freeze spell, can you? No. Particularly in Winteria, and I might have found this more striking if Winteria was a well-realised location. Of course, it's the fire spell you're going to need to release something frozen. Obvious, really. Look, there is that life force clock running all the way through as Ben completes the shapes part of this challenge. And for the only time in Series 5, they've got the heartbeat sound back on it. I was pleased to hear that when I first watched this scene, and it does add to the tension of the scene. Hurry team, energy levels are low. We watch the life force ticking through. We listen to that heartbeat sound. Ben's virtual life ebbing away, and think, oh, is he going to make it? They're not going to say his life force has run out and he's lost on the brink of victory, are they? No, of course they're not. But it does create that tension, that exciting Knightmare viewing when you first see it. As I've said, Knightmare is designed to be watched, experienced, and then remembered, but not necessarily watched again and analysed to the nth degree. But there we go, it's still fun to do so. Spellcasting heroes, Heroes, just like in Series 2. We haven't carried on with the tradition of having, as it was, Merlin, that started in Series 4, so it's not much of a tradition yet, turning up to congratulate the winners, but it does get continued in Series 6, carry on in 7 and 8, with Hordris taking over the role. So, Series 2 and 5 winning sequences. Back in the antechamber congratulating the team after they've won sequences are the ones that match. No wizard to come and congratulate them and give them trophies, and Tregard spellcasting heroes to dismiss them. Here we have Jenna, Andrea, Kelly, and Anna, also from Exeter, like Ben and team. And of course, as we found out from Ray giving those wonderful photos to the Knightmare website, both teams actually took the same train back to Exeter, because this quest is not very long. It has the distinction of being the first quest to fail in level 1 since Douglas's team in Series 3, and it's only going to happen once more in Series 5 and once in Series 8 that we get a level 1, or at least a pre-level 2 in the case of Duncan, death. It's quite an achievement or non-achievement, and this lot achieve it spectacularly. They're not very good. As I was implying earlier, I sometimes think Tim Child is a bit sexist. He lets on a team of 4 girls occasionally, after a winner, at the end of a series when they're going to have no chance to win. And the more they make fools of themselves, by not really seeming to know what they're doing attempting the Knightmare Challenge, the happier Tim Child is. But this lot live up to his hopes perfectly. Jenna can't read the whole scroll here, neither can the rest of the team when it's written up on the screen for them until Pickle prompts them. Something else, possibly, team? Yes, you've missed the whole first instruction. Buy aniseed. And Andrea wants to completely ignore the second instruction. Don't open the box. Can you see if the chest opens at all? Well, that's not a very good idea, as everyone else realizes. I think that might be the box. You think the box might be the box, do you, Traegard? Yes, I think you might be right. I was mentioning how we're losing those 3 aspects of presentation after this series, those original aspects. Of course, the new aspect of presentation from the previous series is Traegard has an assistant, which of course we're not going to be losing. It's very firmly part of the format of Knightmare now. As Paul McIntosh said, talking about Pickle in the Eye Shield, as soon as he turned up in episode 1 of Series 4, it became obvious that from that point on, Traegard would have an assistant, and indeed he did. And I was certainly pleased to see Pickle back here in Series 5. But I had rather a nasty or uncertain moment when the Radio Times, when Knightmare was going to come back for Series 5, for Episode 1, had a picture of Pickle on his own. This was the first time the Radio Times had actually listed Knightmare. Of course, until earlier in 1991, it only had BBC listings. But it had started doing all 4 channels as it was in those days, and Knightmare Series 5 was in there, and there was a photo of Pickle with a caption saying something along the lines of Knightmare returns in a new series as Pickle David Lerner welcomes contestants to take on the challenge of the Knightmare Dungeon. And I said to my mum, oh, was Pickle being trained up as a replacement for Traegard then? Is it going to be just Pickle presenting now? And I think I was rather disappointed by that idea. I thought it was going to be like Men in Black, though not specifically at the time, of course. Traegard wasn't training a partner, but a replacement in Series 4. And I didn't like that idea. Of course, Traegard has always presented. As I said before, I may have thought of him rather as part of the furniture, but I'd certainly have missed him if he was gone. just like a piece of furniture that's no longer there. Of course, in later years, I've really come to terms with and expressed on paper and out loud how much I enjoy Treguard, Hugo Myatt's performance, and appreciate the valuable and brilliant contribution he made to the show all through. But I think, really, I hadn't realised just how much I wanted him and I knew the show needed him around until that moment when the Radio Times made me think that Pickle was presenting alone for Series 5. Of course, before the series actually started, the next issue of the Radio Times came out, and there was, I think, a photograph of Treguard and Pickle. And I was pleased to see that. Of course, when I'd said this to my mum, "Oh, is Pickle going to be presenting on his own now?" she'd said to me, "Oh no, I don't think so, darling. It's just a picture of Pickle on his own. But he won't be presenting Knightmare all by himself. Treguard will still be there." And, as it turned out, as about so many things, my mum was quite right, as the next issue of the Radio Times proved before the series started airing. I had a similar disappointment when Merlin was no longer around, as I mentioned on the last commentary. I thought that was just as surprising as if Treguard wasn't going to be in Knightmare anymore, the fact that Merlin wasn't going to be. Because I thought Merlin really was part of the furniture too. The part that gets wheeled out for that special occasion. So, the relief, the feeling that, good, Knightmare's still Knightmare, was short-lived. In the end, Treguard's still there, but no more wall monster-like things, no more Merlin. Changes are certainly afoot. Of course, this is one of the 3 episodes in Knightmare's second half without Lord Fear in it. There seems to be a very deliberate effort not to have Lord Fear in 2 episodes this series. The previous one he wasn't in, which is Ben's first episode, episode 6. Ben finds a spyglass, but the scroll tells him not to use it until episode 7. And then here, episode 9, Lord Fear isn't in, but Julius Scaramanga is going to give Jenna a spyglass first thing in the next episode. We paused on Julius giving her some food there. And the end of episode 8 was Ben using the spyglass in Winteria. So, that's a very deliberate effort not to get Lord Fear in this episode. And it's the same in Series 7. The episode he's not in there, episode 7. Episode 6 ends with a spyglass sequence, the second of the episode. Episode 8 begins with Nyla carrying a spyglass illegally. She's got 3 objects in hand that Rothbury has given her and insisted she's taken away. To start with a spyglass sequence at the very beginning of episode 8. So it's a very deliberate decision not to put Lord Fear in 3 episodes. Is there something contractual about it? Well, Mark Knight is in all Series 7 episodes, because as I mentioned, Rothbury is in that one. But Sir Hugh isn't in the 2 that Lord Fear isn't in this series, so maybe Mark Knight was contracted to appear in 14 out of 16 episodes. Who knows? Thanks for joining me for this episode commentary. Join me again next time as I talk about Knightmare Series 6, Episode 7.